Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. So I came across a really interesting company recently, and I wanted to find out a little bit more about it. And so I want to introduce you to three people from something called FinTech Cadence. FinTech Cadence is a not-for-profit based out of Montreal, Quebec, that is on a mission to support entrepreneurs in Canada's financial technology ecosystem and help make Canada a global leader in financial technology. They run several programs to educate, incubate, and grow fintech entrepreneurs in early stage companies. Recently, FinTech Cadence acquired something called Innovate Financial Health and announced that applications are now open for the IFH Lab. The IFH Lab is focused on a 6-month program that supports startups focused on improving the financial lives of Canadians, particularly those more financially vulnerable. Elvis Wong has joined us tonight, and he's the founder of Innovate Financial Health and now Director of Financial Health of FinTech Cadence. And Molly Willits is the Head of Programs and Research for FinTech Cadence. And they're also joined today by Zach Kanji. He's the co-founder of Ultra Wisdom. What a great sounding name. My God, I have to find out more about that. And he's an alumni of the 2020 IFH Lab program. Gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Who should I ask? Elvis, can you tell us more about FinTech Cadence and what you do?
For sure. So FinTech Cadence, as you mentioned, Brian, is a nonprofit based in Montreal, and our goal is to help make the FinTech ecosystem more accessible. So we want to support individuals that are interested in the financial technology ecosystem. So learning how to apply technology to help Canadians save, access, invest, deal with debt, etc. So we educate individuals about the financial technology ecosystem, but we also support early stage startups. And we do that in collaboration with a lot of financial institutions and venture capital firms and advisors. So these include National Bank and Desjardins, for example.
Molly, what the heck is FinTech?
FinTech is the integration of technology into our financial services. So it's ATMs are a form of FinTech, but then also your bank's financial management app, for example, that most of us use now. We don't go into a physical bank anymore. We go online and we do our banking online. But then it also includes startups, so like Ultra Wisdom, who Zach's joined us from, startups that are making products that are outside of those major financial institutions, but that provide alternative financial services and alternative financial products. So things like budgeting apps would be what comes to most people's minds, Mint, but then also probably top of mind for everyone, something like Robinhood, because of course of what happened with GameStop recently. But it can also encompass insurance apps, so digitalized insurance and things like that.
So anything financial that is living within the digital world.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So second question, Molly, what's Cadence?
That's a good question. Cadence, it's about the cadence of innovation. So it's about like how innovation keeps up with the world and the sort of cycle that innovation takes in the FinTech ecosystem.
So FinTech Cadence is what, Elvis?
Yeah, so FinTech Cadence, our goal is to create—
No, the words, FinTech. So what you're doing is you're trying to digital finance, you're trying to regulate its movement or its growth or its cadence or what?
Not regulate, I wouldn't say. I think we're trying to support its growth.
Okay.
Of digital financial services.
Okay.
And we're really trying to build out the ecosystem. So Elvis talked before about wanting, like we're contributing to the growth of FinTech leaders. So that cadence refers to like the contribution that we're making to the evolution of FinTech in Canada, from its grassroots, like so an entrepreneur with an idea for a product that doesn't exist, all the way to seeing that product come into existence and growing and scaling.
I love the choice of the word. I think cadence is a great word, and you've talked about ecosystem and how people have got to work together and how you support. I remember I was at a summit on clusters, and the person said the key success with clusters that work is something called synchronicity, and that sort of sounds to me like cadence. I don't know. It's how things work together and benefit each other, and maybe cadence is it. Zach, I got to ask you, what the heck is altruism?
Well, thanks for having us, Brian. Altruism is a subscription-based platform with curated lessons, tools, and action items to make Canadians financially resilient. So our intention is to help Canadians get through life events by sharing the practical wisdom of those who have been there before.
So you're putting Warren Buffett's letters on an app?
Yeah, so you know what? Through our experience in the wealth management industry, we've seen that although many of our clients come in with questions and concerns around investment decisions, a lot of their financial stress is rooted in having to respond to and plan for specific life events. So we saw a great need in providing the advice and guidance outside of just the general investment advice.
The advice outside of the general investment advice for typical events. What's that like?
Yeah.
Insurance or storms or the birth of a baby or something?
Exactly. So we're focused entirely around life events. So whether that's parenthood or divorce or a physical ailment. So once you come to the platform and you tell us a little bit more about your situation, we present you with an action-driven plan to get you through that life event, really with an underpinning of financial guidance, but also taking into account emotional states, wellness, family dynamics, everything else.
I got to tell you, I just finished an interview earlier today with some people that are specialists in divorce, and I asked them a similar question, and they said the smartest thing you can do is have a prenup. And they said that most people with first marriages don't have a prenup because they think they're in love and do it for love. And everyone in the second marriage has a prenup because they learned their lesson in the first marriage. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it was an interesting point of view. Anyway, we're chatting with Zach Kanji, Elvis Wong, Molly Willatz about FinTech Cadence and a program that they're going to tell us more after the break. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with these three in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We're talking tonight about FinTech Cadence, which is kind of interesting. I love the combination of the two words. Cadence, Molly tried to describe to us as sort of the way things work together and grow. And I think that is kind of an interesting use of the word to describe what an organization, a not-for-profit that wants to spur innovation and growth and support within a digital finance ecosystem is doing. So I love the name. Elvis, you're the founder of Innovate Health and this IFH Lab. Can you tell us what the IFH Lab is all about?
Yeah, what we're all about is supporting specifically startups and entrepreneurs that are focused on improving the financial lives of Canadians, particularly those that are more financially vulnerable. So we're finding entrepreneurs that are focused on helping, for example, newcomers access credit, helping individuals build emergency funds, helping non-standard workers access benefits, for example. And what we're trying to do is we select these startups, we provide them with access to mentors, access to capital, access to potential partners with financial institutions, and we're trying to help them scale what we think are important innovations that help Canadians, and we're helping them expand across Canada.
Can you tell us about some of the people that you've done that with?
Yes, so Zach here is one of them, so he can tell you a bit more about that. But another good example is Cuber out in New Brunswick. They're a startup that helps individuals save and build emergency funds. And something that we helped them do last year was we helped them partner with a nonprofit out in Calgary that works with low-income Calgarians. So now, if you're low income in Calgary and you save on the Cuber platform, the local nonprofits will match those savings so that Calgarians can build $500 emergency funds. So that was a pilot. And now we help them expand where there's other nonprofits in Toronto that also offer this, and any Levi's employee in Canada, for example, can access match-based savings through Cuber.
Fantastic. So you're talking about new immigrants, and you know, some of the problems that new immigrants have the most is getting enough money for a first and last month rent or a down payment. And then even when they do get that, it's that they don't have a local credit score or credit rating that will allow them to get a mortgage, or even have a landlord agree to rent them something, because they don't, you know, they're asking for, you know, credit score, credit report recommendations, et cetera. How do you solve that? Have you got anyone that's working on that?
So in Canada, what we're trying to do is find more entrepreneurs that are working on these issues. Now, there's a lot of companies globally that have done similar work. One example is a company, I believe it's called Stilt, just last 2 weeks ago, they announced that they raised $100 million in debt to support their startup and the loans that they make to immigrants in America to help them build credit scores. So we're still looking for additional startups that are working on this in Canada, and we have our program now, and hopefully we can find a couple.
Other than new immigrants, you know, Molly, what are some of the other reasons why Canadians are struggling with financial lives?
Well, I mean, I think obviously the one at top of folks' mind right now is the pandemic. We're in the midst of the pandemic. We're probably all a bit tired of talking about it, but it's a huge one. But I think you know, even before the pandemic, people's financial health was really struggling. Canadians were really struggling with their financial health. The trends were not great. So I think what COVID's done is actually just pointed to some larger systemic issues. You know, I know one of them is the cost of living has gone up and wages haven't kept up. You've also, you know, got precarious work and the increased reliance on precarious work in the gig economy. And then I think one thing that we're really focused on at IFH is around just the way we interact with money has changed. The way we spend money, the way we move our money has changed. You've got companies like Amazon and Apple and the Googles of the world who are spending a lot of money trying to make it easier for us to spend our money and make it more efficient for us to spend money. And you've even got sort of smaller retailers integrating things like buy now, pay later. We've got, you know, FinTech, tech is great and FinTech is great. And we're trying to build out the FinTech ecosystem, but also with all of these new innovations in how we move our money, it also opens up Canadians to be more vulnerable. And so you know, we see it getting easier and less friction in how we spend our money, but not necessarily keeping up in terms of making saving money easier, making accessing insurance easier, and things like that.
So you mentioned Robinhood earlier, and you know, I think it's interesting because Robinhood, and you undoubtedly are the expert here and know more about it than I. But from what I understand, what happened is their innovation was no fee transactions, and so therefore reduced the friction in buying and investing in the stock market fairly dramatically. And then what ended up happening is people started making investment recommendations on social media that they wouldn't have done before, and certainly that no one dreamt would be used for investment recommendations, and those being Reddit and even TikTok, I understand. And people, you know, teenagers were getting lessons in how to invest in the stock market from TikTok, and they may not have been the most financially astute YouTube videos or TikTok videos or seminars that they were getting. And then a bunch of people started recommending buying a retailer of video games, and the thing went crazy. And what's your lesson from that? Is it that the democratization of investing in the stock market and making transactions cheaper is good? Or is it bad because it's so risky and a whole bunch of people made a mistake and they lost 50% of their value when the whole thing came crashing down last week?
Yeah, Brian, I don't think it's neither. It's neither that it's good or bad, democratizing investing. I think what it tells us, like overall, I think that democratizing investing is a good thing, right? The stock market has traditionally been inaccessible to a lot of individuals, and it's a good thing that it is accessible. But the way that Robinhood approached it may not be the best approach. We think that, first of all, there's Robinhood is one platform out of many. There's other platforms that could exist that also allow people to access the stock market, but also provide adequate financial education so that people actually know what they're getting into. So there's one option of creating something that's more purposeful and actually helps individuals know what they're dealing with. But I think a second piece that we need to consider when we're thinking of supporting our startups, we know that there are startup founders that are focused on really helping Canadians and Americans. And then there's other ones that are focused on making as much money as possible.
Right.
And when we look at Robinhood and how they made their money, it wasn't through their users, it was through the hedge funds that actually funded them, right? So their incentives were misaligned in terms of their business model. And what we're interested in is supporting startups where their incentives are aligned, where actually the way that they're sustainable is actually delivering the best service for their users as possible.
Okay, I can understand what you're saying, and I congratulate your objective, but you got to admit, Robinhood and what happened in the last couple of weeks probably got more people interested in fintech, and particularly young people interested in fintech and the stock market than anyone ever dreamt of previously.
Yeah, which is, I think that long term, that's probably a good thing, right? But I do think that if this is the only path that we go for, it's going to be a mistake. And if we're not considering the negative impacts of Robinhood and how do we actually, through the government, actually regulate and actually make sure that the technology that we're using is helpful, I think that that's going to be a big mistake.
Okay, so what are some of the innovations that technology? What are some of the benefits that technology can play in what you guys are trying to achieve?
Yeah,
it sounds to me like, frankly, a lot of what you're trying to achieve could be accomplished by a course in high school about financial literacy.
No, so I think that I'm not much of a financial literacy fan in general. So I think one example.
Molly wants everyone to take insurance and be more risk averse.
Sorry, say that again, Brian?
No, not everyone, just where it's appropriate. And I think that's kind of the key is that, and Elvis, I'm sure going to say a similar thing, is that, financial literacy is great. But it has to be just in time. It has to be offered when it's needed. Not, if I learn about insurance in high school, am I going to remember what I learned when I'm, in my 20s and maybe taking out my first insurance policy, starting a family? If I learn about mortgages, am I going to remember that when I'm buying a home? So financial literacy, financial products need to be offered that make sense for people. There's no one size fits all.
Yeah, what I'll add, Brian, is innovations don't have to be education focused. So we really have to look at the reasons why Canadians are struggling. So one example is why would a Canadian go to a payday lender, right? A lot of times it's a mismatch between when they're getting paid and when their bills are. So potentially they get paid every 2 weeks, but we know that's not the reality of how you spend, right? So another one of our cohort startups, Zayzoon, what they do is they provide instant access to your paycheck of what you've already earned, which means that instead of actually going to a payday lender and getting debt, if you need money right now, you can actually request from your employer that money for the past week that you've earned, for example, and then you don't need to go into debt. So that's another example of something that could be an innovation that we think that employers should adopt.
So this isn't just direct deposit into your bank account. It's actually getting the access to the money before the typical payroll date.
Exactly.
Well, so that's a payday loan, but it's payday hour effectively, or something like that.
It is, but it depends on the business model, right? So what we find is that employers are willing to pay for that service so that it doesn't actually cost the individual anything to access that money, right? So you're accessing your own money. The employers are willing to pay for that service because if your employees are more financially healthy, they're more likely to stay in their job. They're more likely to actually be focused when they're at work, less likely to call in sick. So there's incentive for employers to have financially healthy employees, for example.
What trends are you seeing in the financial fintech ecosystem? Is it a lot of innovation? Are there lots of people that are entrepreneurs that are launching apps and programs that are going to be addressing the issues that you talked about?
Yeah, we're seeing it more and more. We've been in this space for about 3 years now. And when we first started, right, there wasn't really a conversation here in Canada. There was a lot of movement going on in the US and the UK, but more and more individuals are coming up with solutions that are specific to a demographic, like newcomers, like non-standard workers, like people living paycheck to paycheck. And what we're also finding is that these solutions are getting more nuanced. So previously, a lot of the solutions were just your typical budgeting app, right? And now these solutions are more focused on very specific and niche challenges, which we think is more likely to be successful.
Why do you think, Molly, your not-for-profit is needed? Why isn't this just happening normally?
That's a good question. I mean, it's really difficult to be an entrepreneur. And I think Zach could probably speak to that a bit. It's hard to get a business off the ground, and you need support. And we actually, last year, we spent a lot of time speaking to FinTech entrepreneurs and mission-driven FinTech entrepreneurs about the kinds of supports that they needed. And so Canada, Toronto particularly, there's a ton of programs, incubators that are geared towards sort of entrepreneurs generally, and they provide advice and workshops and things like that. But FinTech is really specific, and even more specific when you're focused on financial health and when you're mission driven. So in talking to those entrepreneurs, we found that they just lacked the kind of specific supports. Regulation for fintechs is much more significant an issue than for a lot of different entrepreneurs. They needed people who were in financial institutions. They needed access to mentors who had a financial institution background, who had a background in financial health, who were sort of on the ground and had the experience of running a fintech, and that just wasn't out there. So that really drove us to kind of build out the IFH program.
We're chatting tonight about financial entrepreneurship and innovation in the fintech business. And we're chatting with Elvis Wong and Molly Willits, who are with FinTech Cadence. And it's been an interesting conversation. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Zach Kanji. And we're going to talk a little bit about a company that he's launched that I think got actually assistance from FinTech Cadence and their IFH program. And it's All True Wisdom, which sounds like a fascinating company. Stay with us. We're going to hear more from Zach in just a minute. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Elvis Wong and Molly Willits, who run something called FinTech Cadence and an IFH program, lab program, which funds companies that are involved in FinTech evolution and startups. And we're now going to chat with one of the people that has actually been helped by them. His name is Zach Kanji. He's the co-founder of Ultra Wisdom. He's an alumni of the 2020 IFH program. Ultra Wisdom is a startup based in Alberta that provides affordable life event-based financial planning advice and coaching through an online platform. Sounds life event-based. What the heck, Zach, is life event-based financial planning and advice and coaching?
So exactly like you
like
said.
you're going to have to add in the thing about the prenup that I mentioned.
Yeah, no, you're right. I don't want to put myself on the spot, but I didn't get one myself. So, like you mentioned, we're focused entirely around life events, Brian. So once you sign up for the platform, usually you're coming in because of one of your life events. So let's say you're going to be a parent soon, or you're going through a divorce. And when you come in and you tell us a little bit more about your situation, and we kind of teach you how altruism works, we then present you with this action-driven plan that has checklists where we guide you through the most important action items that you need to consider to complete for this life event. Then we kind of show you our wisdom collective, which is where we present case studies of those clients that we've helped successfully navigate similar life situations as the ones you're experiencing. These are actually quite complex case studies with multiple life events. They're multifaceted, they have multiple characters and family members. And then this allows you to read through their situation and pull the strategies that someone else used and apply it to your own situation. We then also take you through a benefit repository, which takes into account your situation and presents you with a list of all the federal, provincial, and community benefits that you can apply for. And then finally, we have our filing cabinet, which is a secure online document repository where you can store your important documents and keep them all organized.
Awesome. How did IFH help you?
So IFH was actually the first accelerator that we found that truly suited our needs. So altruism is a fintech with a very social mission at heart. And we found that IFH balanced their program between the skills training required for growth and fundraising and investment, alongside true impact measurement, which I found that many of the accelerators out there didn't have that. I think also, given that they were in their inaugural cohort, or we were their inaugural cohort, they were really committed to hearing our feedback and adjusting their offering to fit our needs. And then finally, as Molly mentioned, the mentors, the speakers, the network that we built from the accelerator was second to none. I mean, we benefited from numerous partnership contracts, brand awareness, and access to a lot of support to assist us in our next steps.
Given COVID-19 would have been challenging, and they're in Toronto and you're in Alberta, would have been challenging to get together. How did you actually interact with FinTech Cadence?
So just the way that we're interacting today through Zoom, they were able to continue the accelerator for the last half. They managed to, still have our mentor sessions and our other sessions as well with the other cohorts, just over Zoom. So they managed to figure it all out, and I'm assuming they're going to have to do that in the future as well.
Could you give me an example of one of your clients and how your platform actually assisted them?
Sure. So a more recent example would be a member of ours who during COVID was going through a divorce. She had 2 kids, lost her job, and as a result started her own business as a consultant in the same industry. So if you look at each of these major life events in its own, they come with their fair share of financial challenges, but also come with managing emotional states and family dynamics as well. So where we helped her is through our coaching model. She initially came through the platform and then signed up for coaching, and we helped her first restructure her debt payments and make a budget and a plan to reduce that debt. And then, we did, for example, worked with her to refinance her mortgage, took her through the process. So there's a lot of hand-holding, helping her understand the process and giving her the knowledge and mainly the confidence to get her through that process. Helping her understand divorce proceedings, understand child and spousal support, and even help her prepare the financial disclosure report for those proceedings. And then if you look on the emotional side, one thing that we didn't really expect, but due to COVID, you have this couple who is in this combative relationship who has to now live together with their kids and can't really escape from that situation. So having someone like an altruism coach to turn to help them through the situation having those weekly check-ins and keeping them accountable and moving forward was really valuable.
You know, Zach, what you've just described sounds fantastic and obviously very helpful, but it doesn't sound very tech. Sounds very non-tech. You talked about handholding. You talked about a personal relationship. You talked about weekly check-ins. How is this fintech? Sounds to me like it's just a really nice guy.
Yeah, no. So initially, we had the platform, which had all the education and tools. And through IFH, we actually learned that we needed to focus a little bit more on the true impact measurement. And we had to come back to a coaching model, which we use the platform and then we wrap around technology around it so that we can aid in the coaching process. So the technology becomes useful in helping to motivate our members to track their progress, but also in the tools that we apply. So through the benefits that we present and we help them apply for, or through the filing cabinet that we help them organize their documents, all of that is technology wrapped around the financial advice and guidance.
If people want to access your services, is it a website or an app?
So it is a website. It's a web-based app under altruism.com. Right now, sorry?
How do people access it?
So just altruism.com, they go to the site and they sign up.
Can you spell it for us, please?
Yeah, ALTRUWISDOM.
Awesome. So Elvis or Molly, this sounds like a great program, the IFH program. I understand that you're now recruiting people for the next cohort of applicants. What are you looking for and how do people apply?
Correct. So we're looking for the next cohort. People can apply through our website. It's fintechcadence.com/IFH lab. Or you can just Google IFH lab as well, and you can find it there. We're looking for startups that already have products in market and some sort of validation, some sort of test users. And obviously what we're looking for are founders are looking to improve the financial health of Canadians. So we're really looking for that intentionality in what they're building and actually having them thought through what the impact of what they're going to build is going to be on the end user. The program will run from May to October and applications are currently due end of March, March 26th at 2 p.m.
And IFH stands for Innovate Financial Health?
Correct.
And that website again?
It's www.fintechcadence.com/IFH lab.
And you want people that are already in market or already have something?
Have a product. So it doesn't have to be fully in market, but some sort of test users. We just think that our value is helping you get clients, get partners, get in front of financial institutions. So we're looking for individuals that are past just having an idea.
You know, I got to tell you, Elvis and Molly, both of you sound like incredibly bright people. Why aren't you trying to make $1 billion? Why are you trying to run a not-for-profit and help people's financial health?
I ask myself that all the time. And I don't know, I guess it's just an obsession of mine. So I'll let Molly answer too, but for me in finding this, I used to be a management consultant. I had this opportunity to come up with this idea and enough people told me it was a good idea that I just felt like if I went back to management consulting, nobody was doing this in Canada and it'd be a lost opportunity, whereas I could always make money later on if I really needed to.
Molly, why are you doing this not-for-profit financial help rather than putting those expertise that you've got into making $1 billion?
I mean, I think like Elvis, I just care about it a lot, but my background isn't in fintech and it's not in finance. It's in the public sector and in poverty reduction. And so when I met Elvis and when I first got involved, I just found it really inspiring. It was, a new way to approach poverty reduction and find new solutions to it. And there's so many brilliant people out there building awesome products. And who knows, maybe the next big solution to really change Canadians' financial lives is out there, and we have the chance to find it and to support it and to watch it become something.
And you think it's going to come through FinTech, this next thing that's going to change people's lives and reduce poverty?
Yeah.
I think FinTech is one pillar that we can use. I think there's a huge role for policy. I think there's a huge role for additional research from the government, just so that we understand financial lives better. The financial institutions play a big role as well. But I think FinTech is definitely one pillar that we can use to influence people's lives directly, and then also force financial institutions to change their own products and services because of the competition that we create.
So I actually agree with you. I think that a lot of studies have been done that suggest that the poor pay exorbitant interest rates, whether it be payday loans that are the way they finance their lives, or credit cards that they never pay off on the minimum due date. And end up getting charged 18% or whatever it is, interest rates that a lot of places would be deemed loan sharking kind of rates, and or get in a worse situation. They go to someone that charges them even worse kinds of interest rates, and not saving and not making use of RRSPs, even if their income is so low. But RRSPs can be extremely helpful and a great way to save. And never being able to get enough money to put down a down payment, and getting real estate, which is one of those things that typically appreciate in value, and given our tax system is one of the only asset that you can enjoy some capital gains on income tax free. So I think that you're right. I think you've targeted the right sector. And I got to tell you that I'm actually struggling through, and Molly, because of your academics in, what was it, urban geography or something like that, with those, the poverty reduction. I got to bore you by telling you that I'm struggling through a part-time doctorate in business, and it's on economic development. And I started thinking that it was all going to be about the banker and financial capital, and ended up coming to the conclusion that it's about social capital. And so my thesis is going to be on social capital, which sounds to me like Cadence. So I think that the clusters that work worldwide are the ones that have good cadence, that have good synchronicity. And if financial cadence and your financial health strategy can work toward achieving that, fantastic. I congratulate you. And I think, Molly, when we were chatting earlier, I mentioned to you an entity in Vancouver that has really done an innovation in the way people get welfare. And rather than getting a check every week or a check every month, what they do is they gave people $7,000 of cash up front. And what they found, and these were obviously impoverished people, they found that with $7,000, they did material things. 60 or 70% of the people did materially beneficial things to their lives. Either they got a place and got off the street because they could finally afford first and last month's rent, or they made a down payment, or they paid tuition for a course, or they started a business because they had some money. $7,000 made a significant difference. And if they can do that, and since we talked last, Molly, they actually just this past weekend got a big award out of British Columbia for what they've done and what they've achieved. And so I think that's great. So I think you guys are on the right track.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it, Brian.
Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about what we're doing.
My pleasure. So Molly, once again, what's the website that can people apply to your IFH fund?
www.fintechcadence.com/IFH lab.
Molly Willits, Elvis Wong of FinTech Cadence, and Zach Kanji of, what was the name of the company again?
All True Wisdom.
All True Wisdom. That's got a web-based app that will help people with their financial health, and was one of the people that got helped by financialcadence.com in this fund last year. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for joining us. Good night, everybody.